So for everybody who is watching, this is Evan, who is one of the co-creators of Lennox Mutual, and I'm going to say nothing more because I want to ask you now to explain to me exactly what Lennox Mutual actually is, Evan.
Oh boy, where to begin? Lennox Mutual is an we call what we do alternate reality theater. So sort of in the neighborhood of experimental, immersive, interactive, but something that pulls on elements of all of those and to create along with alternate reality gaming to create a theatrical experience over time for one person that sort of um, uh, gets to know you and understand you and vice versa as time goes on, picks up where you left off, remembers you authentically every single time. It's a self-driven, the sort of more clinical description of it is it's a self-driven, custom curated, immersive experience in the form of a customer service phone tree for life
Yes,
insurance.
yeah, I mean this is what kind of arrested my attention. It basically is an immersive experience that takes place over a course of phone calls. Is that right? So several phone calls.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So it's you book a 20-minute phone session with one of Lennox Mutual's live representatives to with the goal of making an appointment and receiving a policy, like any insurance company. And over the course of that 20-minute phone session, you're invited to explore the menu options and you know you might find some things that are not entirely where they should be, some beginnings of some threads to pull on. Things may not be quite as they seem, but then your 20 minutes are over and you're invited to book another session. And when you do, you pick up exactly where you left off the first time. Lennox Mutual remembers you. And you can book as many sessions as you like. And with each session as you go, not only do you pick up where you left off every single time, but the company starts to get to know you and starts to curate things toward you and more and more in, infest the reality around you until you're experiencing things that no one ever has or ever will experience except for you.
Okay, okay. And is it a theatrical experience in the sense that there's some sort of drama that's in unfolding? It's not
Yes.
these kind of.
So there's it's this sort of we call it a theatrical assemblage. So there is a central narrative. There are sort of other narratives surrounding that. So we like to imagine that there's something for anyone in Lennox Mutual. There are narrative threads that run through the foundation of it. There are more not necessarily puzzles, but there are uh, sort of labyrinthine twists and turns and things to figure out. There are sort of more traditional games, meditations. It borrows from things like tabletop gaming, guided lucid meditation, text adventure, alternate reality gaming, etc., to create this, like I said, sort of assemblage art where a given participant can find this multitude of things all bringing one back to I can't say any more about it, but bringing one back to a central narrative that does have a beginning, middle, and an end.
And is it always the same narrative for each, or is it tailored to the person? Is it
In
asking too much?
There is a there is an aspect of the narrative that is sort of we're storytellers at Candle House. That's our whole mission. And the Lennox Mutual is not an exception to that. There is a story that it brings to the table. It isn't an empty vessel necessarily. It does contain it is bringing its own like background reason for being to the table, but the goal is not to focus solely on that or focus solely on what the participant brings to the table. It's to take those two things and create an experience that is a fusion of both of them. So to answer your question, there are pieces of it that are that exist already before the participant arrives, but the participant is a key element of the experience. It literally cannot happen without them. And that's the same for the story. There are elements of the story that they bring with them.
Okay. And I guess what sets it apart from other kind of gaming experiences or immersive experiences is the fact that it takes place in the comfort of your own home.
There's that. That's I think an element of it. The fact that it taking place in the comfort of your own home on the phone where you don't, you're not being seen, you're being heard.
Mm.
There is this sort of comfortable, confessional anonymity to that where one can, um, one doesn't have to be doesn't have to be too human, just human enough, right? But also, so there is that element, but there's also the fact that it does remember you session to session. And when I say remember, I mean authentically remembers you. It's not necessarily, it's easy to in some cases mistake this for, a choose your own adventure story where there are certain inputs and outputs. There are certain you make a choice that has a consequence. And personally, I love choose your own adventure books. I think they're wonderful. This is different. This is the world is of Lennox Mutual is responsive. So every aspect of your participation is going to inform how your experience proceeds. It's not just the choices you make, it's the way you make them, it's how you interact, it's what you think of your representatives, what your representatives think of you, all of it. In that way, I think the thing that sets it apart the most is Lennox Mutual can, Lennox Mutual can boast a an authentic memory. And the how of it, the how does that happen is, you know, book a session and find out. But it that I think is the thing that sets it apart the most is the caller is genuinely remembered, genuinely sort of we get to know you session to session, and you get to know us as well, get to know Lennox Mutual, and that I think that's what sets it apart the most is the authenticity of the memory of the building the narrative together, building the relationship together.
Intriguing and mysterious. And how many phone calls does it consist of? Does it vary or is it
It
always
does vary. In general, we find that so it really is based on your choices largely. I mean, you can book a single session at a time or you can book three packs. And generally, so far, the fewest sessions that it's taken someone to reach the end has been, I want to say 36, and
wow?
the highest is something like 65. But at once, the system also teaches you how to use it. The more and sort of empowers you to understand what different things do and what will create momentum in one direction, what will create momentum in another. And after coming to understand that, it becomes sort of up to you as the participant how you want to proceed, and you build your own. If Lennox Mutual is a field with a door on one side and some sort of something out of focus and strange and unknown on the other, but always in view, and a conclusion always in view. It's your choice how you find your way through the field. It's your choice whether you wander into the forest beyond. The path is up to you, and that is that's sort of where the variable thing comes from. Is that participants are largely arbiters of how long it takes them to reach the end.
Okay. And I wonder what motivated you to set this up?
So if my two wonderful collaborators were here, Joel Myers and Olivia Bear, they would help me in telling a story about a little creative workshop we did 3 years ago called The Hearth, which was meant to be, a kind of a 24-hour play thing, but for interactive experiences. And it was uh, Joel and Olivia teamed up to create this little exercise in bureaucratic and corporate frustration. You know, a sort of a circular uh, process through a circular application process that was designed to alienate the participant. And there remains a sort of memorial to that in the show itself in one specific section. And then my producer Jacob and I participated in their the piece that they had made, and my first reaction was, I hated that. It was the worst. How can we do more?
Mm.
Um, at the same time, I'd been working on a project that sort of dove into my own experience with American health insurance and kind of, basically made it into this satirical
Because I was going to ask you, how to what extent is this a satire on,
caricature of nightmare. Yeah, exactly.
yes.
And those two things, I went to Joel and Olivia and um, talked to them about the beginnings of what this could be, and the three of us worked together to, we pulled the title from that project that was called Lennox Mutual. We pulled the exercise in bureaucratic frustration, the elements of all that came together to create the beginnings of this thing. But in terms of how it ended up where it is now, and did we plan for it? No.
Okay.
Lennox
But
Mutual was in large part an accident. We basically built it as one session, and then two, and then three, and then the story just kept demanding more. I think with Linux Mutual, an easy assumption to make would be, oh, is it just sort of this circular thing forever until, and because the first session is by design a little confusing, but the second session does reveal some things typically. And one realizes, oh, there is motion here. It's like the beginning of the movie Labyrinth, the movie with David Bowie, where she's walking through the labyrinth. It's just a straight line, and she realizes she has to walk through a wall to make it into the maze itself. Um, the the reason it kept expanding and the reason it is what it is now is the story is sort of king, right? The story demanded more from us. It was
okay. So it's not
that
going to be a sort of a replica of people's experience of being on the phone to, health insurance companies. It's not that kind of horrible purgatory.
the first session makes a point to satirize that, and while also giving you a sense of there is, of other places of sort of initial spaces in that field that I mentioned earlier where that one could begin. And then the next few sessions are designed to sort of show you there are ways forward, ways plural forward. There are kinds of motion to be had in this piece, that it's not that it can both be a satire, the what we hope is that it can both be the satirical have the satirical bent to it about the circuity of things like health insurance, like, all the ways in
without
which
without
our
being hell on earth to experience. Yeah.
right, all the ways in which companies make money off of our fear and confusion, while also then providing a sort of alternative to that of, well, what if there was forward motion? What if there was a life insurance company that was actually interested in not just your money, but everything you left behind, your legacy, your the time that you spent. Did you spend it wisely? Um, what would a life insurance company look like that's vested interest wasn't in the money at all, but was in the full depth and breadth of what you leave behind, primarily the memories you leave behind of yourself with other people. What does that company look like? And why would such a thing exist? And that's sort of the question that we hope is sort of the first question one answers as for the
Okay, so it's a starting point for something really quite philosophical.
we sure hope so.
And can you tell me something about your own background? So you are kind of an artistic director of all sorts of things like this. Is that or create lots of
Yeah, so I founded Candle House Collective, the company that is, runs Lennox Mutual, uh in 2018. with a sort of proof of concept piece that was for just 50 participants via various like remote channels. It was much more akin to what one would call like an alternate reality game, alternate reality experience. It lasted about 5 months for the same group of people, and they navigated this multi-platform story throughout. And then the next project was sort of a 3-day ticketed version of that. And basically, I've spent the last, God, has it been 8 years, 7, 8 years, eight? I can't do math. It's been I've I've spent, and then as our team has grown, we've spent the all that time figuring out how we can, as creators of theater, as storytellers, how we can infest people's reality. I think that there's a lot of theater out there that invites you inside. Everything from traditional proscenium theater to the experimental work that one sees at places like La Mama here in the city, here in New York, uh, all the way to site specific and and immersive and interactive theater. There's an emphasis on invitation, right? Inviting you into a special space where you go and and there's this sort of in progress memory that is built that is sort of painted onto the walls, built into the space. What what we've wanted to do with our sort of anywhere in the world work is create work that can infest one's reality instead, that can sort of come to you and superimpose an altered reality onto your own, onto your most sacred spaces, your home, your car, the park that you like, and pin memories to those spaces so that rather than a sort of inviting you inside an alien space that is sort of designed for specifically the memory of that. Instead, creating work that works its way into your day to day and that
It's almost
becomes
like augmented reality, but audio.
sort of. I mean,
Yeah.
augmented reality. If I thought, there's so much terminology that happens. Augmented reality, we're talking about with the phone camera, right? With
Yeah, sort of superimposing something on top onto
a
your
little
space.
bit, yeah. I mean, that's I think that's a very high tech sort of thing,
Mm.
and in general, we like to keep things really lo-fi. I mean, look at the technology we're using, right? Phone calls, text messages. There's no special technology one needs to take part. There's other stuff that is involved in the show too that I can't really give away, but
Yeah.
it begins with phone calls, text messages, and emails, and that's for tech fairly analog, fairly ubiquitous. The idea isn't to, with augmented reality, I think what we're looking at is downloading a special app and having that. And again,
Yeah.
that
I
feels
guess,
into,
yeah, I bring that up only in the sense that you're working with familiar spaces, but superimposing something onto them,
yeah,
making them
yeah.
more than what they are. Yeah.
I think the virtue of being able to use sort of more analog technology is that these are things we use day to day, texts, phone calls, emails. These are things that are already woven into the fabric of our daily lives, and to be able to it's similar to using one's own sacred spaces. It adds it adds an altered state to one's reality. It makes every phone call potentially magic, not just the ones from, it takes things that are mundane, that are maybe even sources of stress for some people, and makes them into, ideally, a sort of a gateway into, not a gateway, that's the wrong word. It makes them into a lens through which one can see one's own world. And the more we can blend in, the more that we can sort of become part of that daily vocabulary. I think in a lot of ways, the better the piece works, because and the better the pieces work because we're not trying to really lie to anyone, not that other, but the goal of a show like Lennox Mutual is to keep everything as honest as possible. The participant is a caller. They're on the phone. They're being called for a session that they booked. The phrase that we find ourselves coming back to a lot is deny nothing, which is really always the goal. The participant's circumstances, they are never anywhere than other than where they are.
Mhm.
The room you're in right now is the room that if you the session that you book with Lennox Mutual, you're right there. We're not trying to move or transport you. We're bringing everything to you.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. Gosh. Well, Evan, I can't wait to well, try it out myself. I guess, we can get details of how to book onto it, whether you like, or do you get tickets or how?
Yeah, so you can visit candlehousecollective.com and the book Lennox Mutual is currently booking through July 5th, and it with another extension forthcoming. With new dates are typically announced every 2 months. Um, and you can yeah, all you have to do is book a 20-minute session, provide us with the most basic of information at, name, email, phone number, and let us take care of the rest. Just be ready by your phone alone at that time.
Alone. So you've got to do it alone. Is that the idea?
Yes.
You're gonna do it alone. Okay. Ooh. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Evan. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you. Really fascinating to talk to you about this, and thank you for giving up your time to speak to me
Thank you
about
so much, Hannah. This was a delight.
Hi everyone, thanks for watching. If you'd like to see more of the same, then feel free to hit subscribe on our channel, or for more similar coverage, visit our website at www.thecuspmagazine.com. Thanks, and I'll see you another time.